every time I jot these thoughts and get up on my conscious tiptoes by most of populace. Popular from the bars I spit from start to end, guns cocked in my noggin way I'm popping shit. Who's really trying to stop the kid and think they'll live to tell? Haters talk behind my back, but to my face they wish me well. Hell, shit, at least I ain't living inside a cell. Still, fuck what they say if they ain't paying my bills. Yo, it's real. These bitches tell me the more I blow up, I'm getting cocky. Just cause I know I'm worth Versace and these dudes will swap me. They see me walking, they start flocking like they paparazzi. I'm with the posse, can't no one stop me. Your bitch is jocking, calling me Poppy, it's true. It's war when I wake up in the morning. You suckers take this as a warning. You got the sunrise to get going in. I'm coming for that crown, coming for that crown. I wanna win, 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 I wanna win. I'm just
Hello, welcome, happy Wednesday. Seems a little bit weird to be starting the fantasy football week kind of already. I mean, we had stuff going on yesterday. It feels like a Monday almost, or it's Tuesday, I guess, kind of. But it's already Wednesday. Fantasy rankings are out. We are here to break them down. We are here to talk about week 6 in the NFL season. With me always on Wednesday nights, Luke and Trevor. How's it going, girly guys? Girly boys?
There we go.
Guys, yes?
Guys.
I can't wait to talk about Todd Gurley tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our obligatory Todd Gurley talk will be coming, I am sure. He looked good this week, guys. He looked good, or last week. He looked good. I will say he didn't have to do much shifting. It was pretty much straight line of speed, but aside from that, I mean, he looked good. It's tough to lose a game when Todd Gurley runs for over 100 yards and whatever, but Falcons managed to do it. Congratulations to them. New head coach. We'll see what happens this week, but yeah, we're here to break down the Week 6 fantasy football rankings. We will compare them to the industry consensus just to see where we differ from other people, other quote-unquote experts around the industry. Obviously, expert analysis coming right here. But yeah, we can just jump right into it. For quarterbacks, Week 6, I have Patrick Mahomes as my number 1 quarterback following a tough Chiefs loss last week. He goes to Buffalo on Monday night. Top 3 quarterbacks are Monday night games, which is interesting. Number 2, I have Kyler Murray at Dallas. We've seen that defense struggle, to put it lightly. Josh Allen versus Kansas City as my quarterback 3. Deshaun Watson at Tennessee for number 4. And Lamar Jackson, reigning MVP, I have at quarterback 5 at Philadelphia this week. What do you guys think about that top 5? Obviously a little bit different than typical. We're starting to see where quarterbacks finally slot out. Obviously we have some bye weeks as well. But Luke, looking at that top 5, is there anything that jumps out to you, positive or negative?
No, I mean, I like the top 5 here. What's really interesting to me is Kyler Murray, too. Not that it's a bad or a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's just that against the Dallas defense, I think basically any quarterback who's playing the Dallas defense might, be top 5 now. Yeah. But Kyler Murray, especially with his legs, DeAndre Hopkins is still an absolute stud there. I think Kyler Murray could even make the case for being 1 this week. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is still probably the best quarterback in football. But, I mean, it's good top 5, I think.
Yeah, a name that jumps out is definitely Josh Allen. He's playing a Kansas City defense that is struggling and has shown struggles throughout the year. At the same time, he did not look good last night against this Titans defense. And this is a Titans team that really hasn't really done much. Look, I know this team hasn't won many games, or has won many games, undefeated 4-0, but they've won all those by close margins to some teams. So interesting to keep an eye on him this upcoming week.
I completely agree. Kansas City has struggled with mobile quarterbacks a little bit this year. We will see if that plays a part or not. I tend to not think so. We saw how Tennessee got Josh Allen completely off his game plan and they couldn't adjust. Like you said, we'll see how that plays out. He finished as quarterback 3 in weeks 1 through 3, quarterback 6 in week 4, and then obviously quarterback 15 last week. He really struggled. Going down the list, let's see, who is notable? Andy Dalton, obviously filling in for Dak Prescott now. I have him at quarterback 14 versus Arizona. I could see myself moving him up the list this week. I don't believe in the Cardinals in the slightest. I don't think they're a very good team. On top of that, they also do not have Chandler Jones now. So I don't think Andy Dalton's that much of a step down from Dak Prescott for fantasy or reality. But we will find out. What's your guys' take overall for Andy Dalton? Trevor, would you start him as a quarterback 1 immediately, or are you just gonna kind of wait to see how he plays out this week?
I think he's a wait to see quarterback, and I think for most teams in most leagues, I think he's a bench quarterback on your fantasy team. I don't think there are going to be very many weeks where you're going to look at Andy Dalton and he'll be a top 10 play, just because I see McCarthy leaning on Ezekiel Elliott a little more. However, Mike McCarthy is Mike McCarthy, and he does not do things the way he should. So with that being said, I don't know, but with this team, with this defense, he's going to have opportunities, but he's not Dak Prescott, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then I agree with you, Trevor, but if I just had to play devil's advocate to it, Andy Dalton, he inherits those weapons that the Cowboys have, and then, that's huge for a backup quarterback. Obviously, Andy Dalton's not really a backup quarterback, but in this case, he is. And that matchup, Zach, you said Arizona's defense is not good. They're out their best pass rusher, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Andy Dalton might have, 5 seconds in the pocket on some of these throws to find an open receiver. And I think that plays well with fantasy. Andy Dalton seems like a kind of quarterback who might be on the waiver wire right now that you could grab and play for 1 week and then drop him next week.
Completely agree. As much negative press Andy Dalton has had in the past as well, I think he's a competent quarterback. This is clearly the best group of receiving weapons he's ever had. And he doesn't play for the Bengals anymore, which is a big deal. And he doesn't play for Marvin Lewis anymore. I think Marvin Lewis is probably a better coach overall than Mike McCarthy. But offensively, I would definitely think this Dallas Cowboys situation fits Andy Dalton quite a bit better. So, I don't know. I like Andy Dalton. I think he's a step up for some of these receivers as well. We saw him find Michael Gallup. He worked through his progressions to find Michael Gallup. It's crazy. It's like unbelievable that a Dallas Cowboys quarterback could do that. It's wild. Other quarterback that are notable. Teddy Bridgewater, after a big performance, I have him down at 20. Luke, what's your thoughts on Teddy Two Gloves against a Bears defense, which was pretty tough against Tom Brady and had a couple extra days to prepare?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Teddy Bridgewater this week, just by what you said. Chicago, they don't have a bad defense by any means. They got good linebackers. They have a decent pass rush, And Chicago's played Teddy Bridgewater a number of times, so I think they kind of know what Teddy Bridgewater is, what they're going to get, what they're going to see. The Teddy Bridgewater still, I don't know how I feel about his weapons outside of Robbie Anderson. I still don't know what to make of DJ Moore this year yet. But I think that I don't see Teddy Bridgewater having a big game. I don't see him having a bad game. I kind of see him having, a normal middle of the pack kind of week this week.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with the Bears there. They've seen them before. And this is a Bears team that they're not as good as New England at it, but they will take away what you're best at defensively. So I can see them going all out on those short, high percentage passes that he likes making and force him to throw the ball deep. He's obviously got a great weapon in Robbie Anderson, but can Bridgewater find him consistently and often enough to keep him true and to win them this ball game? It's going to be tough for him. It's going to be a tough week fantasy-wise at the least.
I was going to try to find the stat that I want for sure, but Teddy Bridgewater this season has been pretty terrible under pressure. And the last few weeks, he's played teams that haven't pressured him. The Bears will, obviously. Khalil Mack will get after him all game long. They'll bring Smith. They'll bring other people. So if they can get Teddy rushed at all and he starts to struggle a little bit, it could be a bad day. It could turn bad quickly. I don't think the Bears narrative is that important here. The Bears have seen Teddy Bridgewater, but Chuck Pagano hasn't. Matt Nagy hasn't. It's pretty much a completely new regime from when Bridgewater was a Viking. But yeah, there's enough tape on Teddy Bridgewater for sure. I think any coach can pretty much figure him out. I don't think he's that crazy good. Any other quarterbacks you want to talk about before we look at where the consensus is at compared to this?
One guy I'd look at, Aaron Rodgers at 6. I'll have to have some words with Henry of Flurry Sports and where he ranks the Packers and according to his Seahawks and stuff. But Packers, to me, are the best team in the league right now. And they're going to go up against a Buccaneers team with Brady, who cannot scramble. Brady, who at times has troubles throwing deep. A team that doesn't have Vita Vea anymore on their defensive line. And even with him last year, were terrible against the pass. This is a game that I can see Aaron Rodgers having a great game, and Vita Vea being out only helps it. And I think this is a game where if you're playing against a Packer, be a little worried because with Brady, like I said, not being super mobile, with their defense being injured, this is a game that could get out of hand. Aaron Rodgers could just torch him. But interesting to see how he'll do, ranked at 6 here. I like the spot.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. This will be a statement game for sure. If the Packers come out and blow them out, I think the line right now is that Packers favored by 1 on the road. If the Packers come out and destroy Tampa Bay, I would assume they finally get respect. If the Packers lose at all, even if it's by a few points, you'll find everybody saying, see, we knew it. We knew this is the Packers team. They overachieved last year. They're overachieving to start this year. Yeah, I don't think the defense is very good, but I think they're the best team in football right now. They're the most complete. And you look at the top of any power rankings, there really is no good defense at the top right now. And Packers at least have pass rushers. That's more than what Seattle can say. That's more than what Kansas City can say. There's just a lot of struggles right now defensively across the league, and fans are a big part of that. Looking at these quarterbacks where I have them ranked in comparison, I have Jared Goff 4 spots higher. I have him at 10. Consensus at 14. Nick Foles is 4 spots higher for me, and Kyle Allen is 4 spots higher. Kyle Allen cleared, is practicing, should start for Washington this week against the Giants. What do you guys think about those 3 that I have higher? Do you agree with the consensus, or more so me, Luke?
I totally agree with Jared Goff for sure. I don't think San Francisco is a good football team at all.
No.
I think this is a game where Sean McVay absolutely destroys San Francisco on primetime football. Jared Goff, I think, is in for a big week. Going to Kyle Allen, is Dwayne Haskins just not practicing with them anymore, or what's going on there?
Apparently, he got sent home today for being sick. Sick. I don't know if it's real or not, but yeah, he's not practicing.
Well, I mean, that does work in favor for Kyle Allen, but the Giants aren't a good football team either. I mean, this is the same as Jared Goff. Obviously, Kyle Allen's not Jared Goff, but it's a good matchup. I mean, all 3 of them that you said, I think they all have great matchups. They all should be 4 spots higher than what the industry has them ranked. So, yeah, I'm good with all those just based on the matchup, not necessarily the skill of the quarterback, but the matchup in general.
Yeah, I'm confused as to why you're 4 higher on Jared Goff. You have him at 10. 14 is about, is about the halfway line for obviously for quarterbacks, 1 per team. And I don't understand that. I mean, Fitzmagic is, he's a good quarterback. I'm not going to trash him, but I mean, I'm sorry. If this Dolphins team can drop 30 on you in a half, I see no reason why Jared Goff can't have a big day too. This team is hurt. They're down in the dumps. And do they have enough to turn it around, or is this going to collapse on them? Who knows? But I think Jared Goff is definitely for sure good where he is at 10.
Yeah, this 49ers team, I mean, they have the whole persona, big bad 49ers and stuff, but the injuries have completely wiped them out. And to talk X's and O's quickly, this is a team, they run the same defense as Seattle. It's a cover 3, same scheme. And we see both teams struggling. And that's part of the reason why Patrick did so well. He faced essentially the same defense 2 weeks in a row, so he knew what was coming. This cover 3, if you don't have pass rushers, you're fucked. And clearly, Seattle doesn't have pass rushers. They get passed all over. San Francisco doesn't have pass rushers anymore. They get passed all over. So if Jared Goff gets protection up front, which he has this season, I mean, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, as much as I hate them, they're all going to go crazy. This is going to be, yeah. I just don't see a way that Jared Goff isn't a quarterback 1 this week, I guess. As far as quarterbacks I'm lower on Gardner Minshew, I guess. Sorry, Luke. We're in the Minshew jersey. I have him at 13. I didn't think that was too low. But, I mean, he does face Detroit. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit too low. You can tell me that in a second. I have Tom Brady 4 spots lower. I have him at 15. Matt Ryan at 16 is 4 spots lower. And then I have Joe Burrow at 22, which is 4 spots lower. Luke, are you angry about this Gardner Minshew ranking, or do you disagree with some of the others more?
No, I'm not. Of course, I'm not angry for Gardner Minshew, but Jacksonville has not been playing that great of football lately.
Yeah.
So Detroit's not a great defense, but Jacksonville's not a great football team. So I understand why you're lower on them. The one that I want to talk about, we talked about him a little bit last night, is Joe Burrow. Like, obviously he's a good quarterback. Obviously he's got some weapons, but I mean, Zach, I think you said it yesterday that there's no way he's going to play a full 16-game season.
No.
I mean, he just gets hit and hit and hit every single play, not necessarily because of his O-line, just being a rookie quarterback, still making those rookie mistakes, and because of his offensive line. So yeah, I'm down on Joe Burrow too, because I don't know if he's going to have enough time to find receivers, if he's going to stay in the game because he's not sliding, trying to get as many yards as he can. Whatever it is, I mean, yeah, I'm low on Joe Burrow as well.
Yeah, and is Darius Leonard for the Colts? Is he going to be back for them?
I am assuming, but I think it is truly questionable.
Yeah, I mean, whether he comes back or not, I don't think it matters. I mean, this is still a defense and a half. You could argue the best one in the league.
Mm-hmm.
At least fantasy-wise, they definitely are. So that's going to be a tough matchup for him. Gardner Minshew, I mean, Luke, I'm sorry, but you're right. This team hasn't been playing great football. And Detroit has shown flashes. Who knows? Maybe this is the game they put it all together. And for Tom Brady, this Packer defense, I think, is a little undervalued. They see a quarterback who can't run, who is their kryptonite. They'll be licking their chops. So we'll see. But I think those rankings are pretty good. I don't think any of those guys I'm looking at and saying, wow, Zach, what are you doing? So I like where they're ranked.
I think a lot of people are assuming DJ Chark plays for Jacksonville this week as well. And I'm on the opposite side. I don't think he is going to play after getting hurt last game. And we didn't even get to really see how he got hurt. He was off camera, tweaked his ankle, I believe. So I'm a little hesitant there. Let's move on to running backs here. I know I'm quite a bit different than a lot of the industry on many players, but let's just talk about the top 5 here. I have Ezekiel Elliott, number 1 overall versus the Cardinals. Derrick Henry, number 2 versus the Texans. James Robinson, not a name I thought I'd be ranking high, but here we are, week 6, crazy. I have him number 3 versus the Lions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 4 at Buffalo. And then Jonathan Taylor, number 5 versus the Bengals. So Trevor, what's your feelings on that top 5 for fantasy week 6?
I think there are 2 running backs here that should probably be switched. I'm looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 4 and Mike Davis at 6. Just outside looking in. Davis playing Chicago, CEH playing Buffalo. Clyde hasn't really impressed me all that much. So look, he's a great player, but fantasy-wise, he hasn't really been what people are drafting him to be. And for me, I'm looking at Mike Davis, and if I'm not mistaken, since he's taken over, he's been the number 1 running back in football, fantasy-wise. Even if the Bears take away the running game, his receiving value out of the backfield will obviously be good. And this is not a Chicago offense that I think will blow him out of the water and make Carolina pass the whole game. so I think he'll continue to see touches throughout the day. Other than that, though, 1, 2, 3, 5, I think those are very good picks. And, even though I said Clyde and Davis should be switched, I think, 4, 5, 6 should be good for both those guys.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Zach, I was just going to ask you, when do you think the last time is that you ranked 3 rookie running backs in your top 5?
I didn't even think about that. That is, and Mike Davis is 6. I mean, he's not a rookie, but he's definitely not drafted at the beginning of the year.
Right. Yeah, I know I just was talking about how Jacksonville is not a good football team, but what they're doing with James Robinson seems to, somewhat be a spark for them on offense. I think they're really trying to get him the ball, really trying to play, that run first kind of offense, and then trying to get Gardner Minshew going off that play action. But if they keep doing that, if the run game's working, I mean, James Robinson could be in for a big week, like a real big week this week, I think. Other than that, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, 2 of the best running backs in football. This top 5 looks good to me. I can see the argument for Mike Davis as well. But I think 3 through 6, you might be able to interchange those. But 1 through 6, I'm probably the top 6 guys this week.
Yeah, and I completely agree with the Mike Davis talk. The only thing with anybody against the Bears, I worry about them scoring touchdowns. Bears are such a good red zone defense, best in the league. It scares me a little bit. So if you take a touchdown away from Mike Davis, I don't know what he can do. I think his floor is pretty high relative to some other players just because of that receiving ability that you talked about, Trevor. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to come down for me for sure. The way I do rankings, I start with consensus and move it around. I moved him down from number 2. Consensus, we're at number 2 with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that is for sure too high. I'll move him out of my top 5 by the end of the week for sure. I need to see who comes up because I'm really struggling with some of these players. Mike Davis, I'm worried about touchdowns. Kareem Hunt plays the Steelers, that scares me. James Conner against the Browns, that scares me a little bit. Miles Sanders, Baltimore, Aaron Jones, Tampa. Yeah, a lot of bad matchups, so I think he'll go below some of those players. But I also think Kansas City kind of has a statement game. If Kansas City puts up 35 points, I think he finds the end zone, and that may be enough to put him in RB1 territory this week. And obviously, the Bills aren't doing very good at stopping the run. Last I checked, they were one of the worst in the league, I believe, in terms of stopping the run. But
hey, you know who has scored against the Bears as a running back?
Who's that?
Todd Gurley. So Todd Gurley. So just throwing it out there. But
did he score against the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Another thing that I don't think anyone's taking into consideration, I didn't until right now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in particular. Kelechi Osemele, guard for them, who has been playing amazing. A terrible injury last week. Worst injury of the week, and no one's talking about it. Tore tendons in both knees. It's possibly a career ender. It was really bad. And he's been a bulldozer on the inside for Kansas City. With him out, that affects the running game more than anything. I think that's rough. So yeah, now that just popped into my mind, Edwards-Helaire is for sure moving down. And I think it's one of those injuries that impacts them the rest of the season, unfortunately. We can talk about Todd Gurley. He's number 14 for me against Minnesota. Minnesota looked better last week, but still the Vikings. 121 yards on 14 rushes for Todd Gurley, 4 catches, 29 yards, a touchdown. RB2 for the week. You guys spoke it into existence, I guess. You called for a big game from Todd Gurley. He showed up against Carolina. In all actuality, and I'm going to go crazy for a running back later and overtalk him anyway, like I do every week. But where do you guys rank Todd Gurley against Minnesota? Is he up to a confident level RB1 for you, Trevor?
If you have some injuries, I think yes, definitely. I mean, just definitely. This Falcons offense is a mess. We're going to see what happens. They're not obviously going to have a completely new offensive game plan with the new coach, but I'm sure some things are definitely going to be different. He posts good stats. The one thing I am worried about, though, he didn't get a whole lot of touches, only 14, and obviously 8.6 yards per carry. That's going to come down. So I'm a little worried about that. But look, with all the injuries we've seen, and, who would have thought Alexander Mattison would be, ranked in the 11th, like we talked about, Hunt, Davis, all these guys, they're up here because of injuries. So if you have some injuries, I think he's a good running back 1, but I don't think anybody can go wrong with him as a running back 2.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Did I miss it, or have they not announced the new Falcons coach yet, or do we not know?
They announced an interim coach. He might be the defensive coordinator. It's not Dirk
Okay.
Carter. So.
Okay. I feel like, with an interim head coach, obviously someone who didn't just get fired, they might at least try to establish somewhat of a run to start their coaching career, as it will be. But I know, Zach, you talk a lot about how Todd Gurley is touchdown dependent. And I think that I think that's fine, because he's had, out of the 5 weeks, 4 of them he's had a touchdown, and one of them he's had 2 touchdowns in. So, the red zone usage to me for him is what just absolutely boosts him up. And I don't think Minnesota is a good enough defense to stop Atlanta when they get to the red zone. And like I say every week, Matt Ryan's not a good enough passer to throw a touchdown in the red zone. So I think that recipe just adds up for Todd Gurley. He, like we said before, he looked great last week. He's running well. Not really sign of, slowing down on him right now. So, I'm rolling with the hot hand here. I'm going to keep grinding Todd Gurley out. I think he's low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2 this week.
Yeah, I do too. I guess I've come around a little bit. I don't think he's fully back. I don't think he's close to being back. Straight line speed I think is good. I think agility leaves a lot to be desired. But yeah, we did talk about him kind of being touchdown dependent, but we also said last week, and it played out exactly right, that, like you said, red zone usage is insane, and Matt Ryan is terrible in the red zone. It's not because they didn't have Julio Jones, because he doesn't use Julio Jones in the red zone. I don't understand it. It makes 0 sense to me. But if they are going to get down there and give the ball to Todd Gurley, then great. Because I think this offense is good enough to get to the red zone every week a decent amount of times. And Todd Gurley could be the touchdown leader this year. And
hey, he looked 65 to 70% of his old self, huh, Luke?
A little bit more to me.
He showed off. That has to be the fastest he's looked all season for sure on that touchdown run.
Yeah.
I saw that right away. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. Over 100 yards, 121 on 14 rushes. That's impressive. And obviously they were trailing. A lot of times teams after a coach firing pull together and get a good win. So if they are leading Minnesota, I think that's a lot to ask. But if they are, that's only good news for Todd Gurley. Not that I think he's going to get 25 touches or anything, but he'll get more than 14 rushes. It'll be closer 16, 17 or so. Let's talk about. I'll talk about any other running backs you want to talk about before I look at the industry consensus, because then we can talk about the guy at that point.
I was just going to bring up David Montgomery here. You have him at 15 against Carolina. Do you think we see a week that Todd Gurley kind of had last week out of David Montgomery this week?
It feels like it. What I like the most from David Montgomery last week is that he caught 7 passes. So if they're going to use him in the receiving game now, great. I don't think he's going to light it up running the ball. I think, obviously, Carolina is terrible defensively, and they just announced that they lost. Is it Star Lotulelei?
I think so.
No, it was Short. Short they lost. I think. D-tackle, they lost him for the season, whatever, the top run stuffer. They lost other defensive players as well, but Bears' offensive line isn't great, but I think they're good enough to at least open holes. And he got 10 rushes last week. That's probably closer to 14 this week. Probably, if I had to project a line for David Montgomery, I don't think he's great, but I think he's like 60 rushing yards, 5 catches for 20, and then a touchdown on the day. and that's good enough for RB14 in the current state of the NFL.
It was Short who went down.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like Latulele maybe isn't there anymore. I don't know. Either way, it's a big blow to the run defense. Any other running backs you guys want to bring up quick?
Yeah, I just bring up Melvin Gordon quick. Obviously arrested for
Yeah.
DUI in Denver. And even if this all magically gets sorted out before game time, it sounds like Vic Fangio is very adamant that he will be punished for this. And when you're Denver and you're this bad, you really have nothing else to lose, especially with all your injuries. So he's definitely got to watch. If he plays, like the position, but it's looking more and more like he won't, which I know obviously your rankings were dependent on.
If he doesn't play, does that boost Philip Lindsay at all? Or like obviously it does. He's the back there, but what do you think you're going to get out of Philip Lindsay if Melvin Gordon's not playing?
It's tough. This isn't. I mean, it's not that bad of a matchup. It's New England this week, right?
Yeah.
New England's not good at stopping the run. Philip Lindsay currently have 34. Looking at the other running backs right now, I think I would confidently switch him with Melvin Gordon at 22. I'd probably put him low teens. Once Zach Moss gets ruled in, I'm going to lower Devin Singletary, who's number 18 right now. I'll lower him a little bit, so I could see him switching there.
Would you put him ahead of David Montgomery?
No. I think Montgomery has to be used this week, especially with the way, I don't know, that pass offense for the Bears leaves a lot to be desired, I guess, to put it lightly. I don't know about you guys too. Obviously, we should talk about Le'Veon Bell getting released. Do not drop him if you're a fantasy owner. He's going to find a home quickly because he can sign for minimum and he gets $6 million no matter what this year. Jets have to pay the rest of it. Chicago seems like a decent landing spot for him. Obviously, they need some help for a receiving back and just a receiver overall. I don't think he will necessarily sign with Chicago. I think Tampa's going to make a big run at him, of course. But I think that's at least one of the landing spots. He's going to sign with a contender, though. He's going to sign with a place that has a chance to win. I'd say Kansas City, Tampa, Chicago. That's probably it. I don't know. So looking at industry consensus where I rank, I have Ronald Jones 4 spots higher. I have him at running back 13. I guess I'm just not. I'll say this at the same time. I'm 11 spots lower on Leonard Fournette, who I have at running back 56. I'm just not confident that he's going to play. And even if he does play, I mean, he tried to play last week and played one snap and was out. I don't see any way he plays meaningful snaps here. So I think Ronald Jones is just going to continue to do what he wants, and it's against Green Bay, who obviously has a track record of not being great against running backs. Zach Moss, I have at running back 33. That's mostly which is 7 spots higher, but that's mostly because I'm projecting him to play. Philip Lindsay, I'm higher. Again, that's probably going to go up. Here's the guy I want to talk about, of course, Frank Gore. Homecoming week. It's not just a revenge week. From Miami, played football in Miami, played for the Miami Dolphins on top of it. Coming back, Adam Gase, Frank Gore revenge week. I am at running back 41, and how is that too high? There's nobody else to touch the ball there.
Hey. No.
Who?
I got my teams mixed up. I'm seeing him in the Miami jersey. I thought you were talking bad about Myles Gaskin. We were gonna have a problem.
No.
My bad. I just see him in the Miami jersey. I'm all messed up. Go on.
Okay. I have Frank Gore running back 41. I think Adam Gase tries again this week. He finally got his way. This very well could be a Jets win, to the frustration of all Jets fans, of course. But at the very least, there hasn't been a week up to this point where Frank Gore has a greater chance to score a touchdown than this one. Jets should be able to run decently well against them. And if that's the case, Frank Gore is going to get his touches. So I have him 8 spots higher than the consensus. Not a confident start. That's still just running back 41, so I don't think that's crazy. I also have LaMichael Pirine as running back 48. Adam Gase talked about how he needs to get him more involved. That's 23 spots higher than the consensus. Pirine's a talented player. I think he has to get involved now with Le'Veon Bell out. Luke, do you have any thoughts on LaMichael Pirine, and how great is Frank Gore this week? Would you start him as a running back one like me, or no?
Well, that leads me into my question here. I'm going to ask right before I answer.
Sure.
In one of my leagues, I'm 5-0, and I only have 2 running backs on my team, and they're both on bye next week. Do I pick up Frank Gore now?
No, Frank Gore has a bye next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
You
So-
still yes though.
Frank Gore, yes, I love him this week. Big week coming for Frank Gore. I love the narrative of the revenge game, the homecoming games. I mean, this is as good as it gets for a revenge game, homecoming game with Frank Gore. Like you said, Frank Gore has to touch the ball. There's really no one else to touch the ball. I think maybe Pirine gets like worked in the offense a little bit this week just to see like what he can do, how he can handle an offense now that, the star running back is gone. But I mean, if they are in a need of getting yards, if they're in need of making plays, Frank Gore's a guy. I mean, he's been around the league for 15, 16 years now, whatever it's been. The Dolphins' run defense isn't great by any means. I think Frank Gore is a sneaky play this week. I think it's a great DFS play this week.
Yeah, at this point, it looks like the goal of Frank Gore is to have his playing career last longer than his son's, and his son's still in college. I love Frank Gore. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, his coach is still Adam Gase. With that, I don't know if I can really trust him for RB1. I definitely think he's a solid RB2, though. I think he actually has a lot more than he's shown. But again, I just think that's Adam Gase. He just sucks all the talent out of you. So I definitely think, hey, if you can get him as a running back too, again, with all these injuries, I think that's great. RB1 might be stretching a little bit, but the moment he finds the end zone, I'm going to get a message from Zach, and he's going to be a viable fantasy start. So fire him up as an RB2, maybe a low RB1.
Yeah, or maybe more. Chase Claypool went for 4 touchdowns last week. Chase who?
Yeah.
Everyone knows who Frank Gore is. Maybe 5. Why not? Let's just light it up. And Joe Flacco's back this week too. He's starting, so thank God they got Le'Veon Bell out of there. Get out of the way. Let's go. Giddy up. Just one other running back here that I'm higher on I want to talk about. Jamal Williams, I have him at running back 44. That's 10 spots higher than the consensus. Since Aaron Jones came in the league, people keep wanting to rank Aaron Jones as the bell cow, the only guy there. I continue to be high on Jamal Williams. I continue to be rewarded. We've talked about him. People were freaking out in week 4. They're like, what's wrong with Aaron Jones? Why is Jamal Williams out there? This is Jamal Williams. He's a receiving back. If Green Bay gets down, he's going to be on the field. He might not look like the prototypical receiving back. We saw him high point a couple balls last game. He can run routes. And at running back 44, that's just what he is every week. And he has touchdown potential. Obviously, 3 Packer fans here rocking the B.J. Raji jersey here. Still holding out hope he returns. But Trevor, what's your thoughts on Jamal Williams, not just this week, but going forward? Is he a guy that has flex value most weeks, or do you kind of have to play matchups, do you think?
I think you have to play matchups, but this week will be a really good indicator because that might change. He's definitely the most fun player on this team to watch, arguably, because of his celebrations at the very least. But just because Devontae's back, I don't think this team is going to stop throwing to their running backs out the backfield, especially to relieve pressure once in a while, and he is so good at that. We'll see how much they continue to go to him. Obviously, if they keep peppering him like they did with Devontae out, Obviously, I think he's a great flex play, but I can see it more being he'll have some games where he really does well and is a flex value, but he'll also have some games where he doesn't really do much for you. So unless we see something different this upcoming week against Tampa, I think he's more of a matchup flex play.
Yeah, I'm on board for that matchup as well. What's nice, Zach, is you said that you keep talking about Jamal Williams and you keep being getting rewarded by it. That just shows how good this Packers offense is right now. That Aaron Jones is on pace for 1,500 total yards or whatever, and you're still getting rewarded with Jamal Williams. I think the Packers are 4-0, doing what they know how to do, throw to their running backs. It seems like it works a lot. I don't see how they're going to change anyway from it. If Jamal Williams is out there right now, I would pick him up immediately. And I would, I think he's got to be looked at for flex every week, even if a bad matchup, because like you said, if they're down in a bad matchup, Jamal Williams is going to be on the field, and I think he's a good enough player that, he's not the number one back, but he could be a good back for your fantasy football team.
I agree. Tampa's been pretty good against receiving backs over the past couple of years, at least last year and then so far this year. I just think this is different. He's a different type of role. He's not the lead back getting contained for his receiving. He's the secondary guy. He's a guy that will come in alongside Aaron Jones as well. He should have some value this week. Again, I'm not ranking him crazy high. He's 44, but yeah, he needs to be looked at for sure. In terms of running backs, I'm lower on. There's only one I need to really talk about, aside from Leonard Fournette, who we already discussed. But J.K. Dobbins, I don't understand why people keep wanting to rank him high. It makes no sense to me. So I have him at running back 36. That's 8 spots lower than the consensus. Reading his running back finishes this season in half PPR, running back 15, then running back 43, 39, 61, 33. Plays Philadelphia, pretty good run defense. I don't know what I'm missing here. Oh, and by the way, his rushing attempts, 7 in that good week, 2, 1, 5, 1. So he doesn't get workload. He's not finishing well, and people want to keep ranking him high. So, Trevor, what am I missing with J.K. Dobbins here, I guess?
I don't think you're missing anything at all. I think a guy that people are missing is people just are looking for the flash value, for the team value. Dobbins has scored double digits once out of 5 weeks. DeAndre Swift for Detroit, he's scored in double digits 3 out of 4 weeks. There are guys that just, for whatever reason, fall under the radar, and there are guys that for some reason people just love. And it seems like this year is just a year that people are saying, oh, it's Dobbins. There's definitely some value that's going to be on your waiver wire. Look at the points, look at the actual production and not just name value, because the analysts might be saying Dobbins, he hasn't proven us wrong except for one crazy week.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, it seems like people want to rank him like a good second running back behind Mark Ingram. I feel like they're trying to rank him like a DeAndre Swift, like a James White, like a Jamal Williams, and I just don't think he's that kind of player yet. He's still five games as a professional football player. I mean, he'll probably grow into a role that Baltimore is going to use almost, and ride him more as Mark Ingram gets older. But I think that's what people are looking at right now. But this guy still needs to develop. He still needs to become an NFL running back, and I don't think he fully is an NFL running back yet.
Well, it's also just a committee that he is at best number 2 in. It's still Mark Ingram, and people keep being frustrated with Mark Ingram, but he keeps finishing higher than J.K. Dobbins. Yet people are acting it's like it's the opposite. Last week I have running back stats up here. Those will be going on flurrysports.org tonight. Mark Ingram played 30.2% of the snaps. J.K. Dobbins 28.6% of the snaps, and it was a blowout, so it was the Gus Edwards show late in the game. He played 39.7% of the snaps. Again, 1 rushing attempt from J.K. Dobbins. So in a blowout where a lot of times you get the rookie involved, they didn't do that. In close games, like we saw with Kansas City, or they're trying to catch up, they didn't get J.K. Dobbins really involved in that. So he's just a guy that's in the rotation. He's talented. He could break off a run at any point. Fully agree with that. But he hasn't. So I mean, I don't know why we need to keep trying to make J.K. Dobbins a thing when he's not. Any other running backs you guys want to talk about before we head over to wide receivers?
Not for me.
I think we kind of covered him last week. He doesn't have a great matchup this week. But D'Ernest Johnson from Cleveland, do you see any more value still with him? Just because he didn't have that great of a week last week?
I mean, it was a tough matchup. People are still worrying, or not necessarily worrying about the Colts, but they had the top graded interior run stopper, and I mean, they still do. It's a tough matchup. But this week, it's another tough matchup with Pittsburgh. So I think people are going to be dropping him probably after this week, after he struggles a little bit, which I'm projecting. I have him at 42 here. I think he's a guy you could probably pick up. Let's see what his matchup is in week 7. But I would assume he's a good pickup after this week when undoubtedly people drop him. He plays Cincinnati. He goes Cincinnati and then the Raiders in 7 and 8, and I'd be perfectly fine starting him in either game. Let's go over to wide receivers now. Number 1, I have DeAndre Hopkins again, same as last week. He plays at Dallas this week. Obviously a good matchup. Dallas can't stop anybody. Number 2, Davante Adams coming back off the bye healthy. People are still acting like he's questionable. I don't know why. He's fully in. Aaron Rodgers said on Pat McAfee's show yesterday that he's back. So don't listen to other people trying to make him questionable. He's fully back. Tyreek Hill, number 3 at Buffalo. I have wide receiver 4 is Adam Thielen versus Atlanta. Obviously a good matchup. And in the same game for wide receiver 5, I have Calvin Ridley, again, at Minnesota. So, Luke, what's your thoughts on that top 5 of wide receivers?
Great top 5. I don't disagree with any of them. I think if I was making a ranking, that would be my top 5 as well. Do you know if Tre'Davious White is playing for Buffalo this week?
Or
is he? Okay. I don't think it matters because, like I say every week, Tyreek Hill is matchup proof. He scored in every game. If he's not catching touchdowns, they're going to try to get him a rushing touchdown. Tyreek Hill, I think, could go higher. It's tough to rank him ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, Davante Adams. So
yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with this top 5 as well. I mean, the matchups are great for these guys, and these are usually the guys that are going to be in the top 5 anyways. So I think it's really hard for anybody to say that these aren't the top 5 guys in any order.
And just to throw it out there, number 6, I have Allen Robinson. He's been so good this year. I hope he goes to a good team in the offseason. He is, if you want to talk about wide receiver tiers in the NFL, I think he's borderline top tier. I think he's so damn good. And you should be able to start him confidently against Carolina this week. Going down, I'll just compare him to the industry right away, just because there's some notable ones, and it blows my fucking mind how stupid people are. It makes no sense to me. So Davante Adams, people are still thinking he's questionable, I guess. I have him 11 spots higher than the consensus. Now this one, I need you guys to, next 2, I need you guys to help me figure out what kind of world we're living in here. Kenny Golladay, I have at wide receiver 11. That's 13 spots higher than the consensus. Either of you, any reason to make, I mean, Kenny Golladay not a top 20 option?
The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is he didn't play last week, so people don't know how to rank him right now.
Yes.
But, I mean, I think I was talking to my roommates about it. I think Kenny Golladay is maybe not as good as Allen Robinson, but I think he's right there with Allen Robinson for receivers. Kenny Golladay is a great receiver in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
I am lost. I just don't understand. I think you ask any football fan that knows anything about this Detroit team about Kenny Golladay over the past 3 years. And they're going to say, yeah, Kenny Golladay is higher up there than people give him credit for. I mean, for God's sake, his nickname is Babytron. You don't get that for being a scrub or for being, a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. definitely fire him up. I love him as a wide receiver. Wish he was a Packer. He should not be anywhere behind 20 at the worst.
Right. So that means people are ranking him like behind Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, people like that. It makes no sense to me. And he was back for the previous 2 weeks before his bye. Clearly still not 100%. Bye week to get healthy and a matchup with the Jaguars. I think I might be too low on him at wide receiver 11. I think he could be higher.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get that. And this one, again, I understand people want to discredit him because of the team he's on. But Jamison Crowder, I have at wide receiver 26. That's 10 spots higher than the consensus. Jamison Crowder's played 3 games this year. In all 3 games, he has double-digit targets. In all 3 games, he has over 100 yards receiving. And in 2 of the 3 games, he has a touchdown. Why is he not being treated with respect, I guess? Because he's clearly the only player on this offense producing. He's doing it consistently. He has a matchup with Miami, which is good because he's attacking that slot corner. Luke, what's your thoughts on Jamison Crowder, I guess?
I know I come on here and slander the Jets a lot. I think they might be one of the worst teams in NFL history.
Yeah.
But like you just said, someone's got to touch the ball on offense. It's obviously been Jamison Crowder. I mean, it seems like Jamison Crowder is just putting the Jets on his back and trying to carry him as far as he can. I don't see why that changes anymore now that Le'Veon Bell's gone. I think Jamison Crowder is Trevor, you said that Kenny Golladay shouldn't be ranked lower than 20. I don't think Jamison Crowder should be. It might be right there with them.
Yeah, I think he's higher too.
Especially with this great matchup against Miami. You know, nobody's going to be able to cover him out of the slot. He's a great receiver just on a bad team. And that's why I think he's not getting valued well, because Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco are throwing him the ball.
I mean, he's played 3 out of 5 weeks, so that's not good for like how much he's played, and he's still ranked easily like top 70 of players overall, including quarterbacks. He's not even rostered in 100% of leagues, which I don't understand. It just makes no sense to me why in a season where we have so many injuries and so many games postponed and so many positive tests, you see guys like Dobbins who've proved it once and that's it. They're ranked high. And then guys like Crowder, who stat-wise is elite so far this year, and he gets no respect. It baffles me. He has not shown he isn't reliable. So, yeah, top 20, easy. Book it.
On a per-game basis, in half PPR, Jamison Crowder is wide receiver 3 on the season. Overall rank, he is wide receiver 23. Again, that's missing 2 games. Only 2 receivers above him in a per-game basis. Number 1, Davante Adams. Again, only 2 games. And then Travis Fulgham, if you want to put any stock into that after last week. So I think we can throw that out. Jamison Crowder's proven he can do it consistently. He hasn't needed ridiculous touchdown totals to get there. I mean, he's the guy. If you have him on your team, good for you. Start him. Because he continues to be discredited. He's not going to make a million plays that are going to wow you. He's not going to be in SportsCenter top 10. But he, I guess, continues to be a top 10 wide receiver. Other wide receivers I'm higher on. A lot of players I'm over 10 spots higher on this week. But I guess if it continues with the trends of the previous 2, I might be on the right side. I have Preston Williams at wide receiver 50. That's 9 spots higher. Demarcus Robinson at wide receiver 51. That's 6 higher. That's sort of in response to Sammy Watkins getting hurt and not playing this week, most likely. Mecole Hardman's going to see a boost, but Hardman's a slot receiver. Robinson's going to see those outside snaps. Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I have him at wide receiver 52. By no means is that high. I am 14 spots higher than the consensus on him. People are thinking Davante Adams is back. Great. Now Valdes-Scantling is going to go into irrelevancy, but they still don't have Allen Lazard. So MVS is still on the field. What's your guys' thoughts on him this week, I guess? Luke, you can start.
I think a lot of people thought MVS was going to be very good without Davante Adams. You know, they thought they could put Davante Adams stats. And didn't really see that much. But I think MVS is one of those receivers who plays better when the number 1 receiver is there. Tampa Bay, I think, is the matchup that MVS might, see a 60-yard post route for a touchdown. I think they might try to hit him right away just to set a tone against what I think is an overrated Tampa Bay team, along with continuing on the trend of the Aaron Rodgers FU tour to the NFL. But I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling has lots of value going forward. I think he plays a lot better when good corners are not on him. Obviously, you could probably say that a lot for a lot of players. But he tweeted out when Davante Adams is out, man, that Davante Adams coverage really isn't a joke. And I think he had like one catch or something that week. But Marquez Valdes-Scantling definitely has a lot of value. I think, the eyes are going to be on Davante Adams, leaving eyes off of Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I think that works in favor for almost anyone in the league, especially a fast receiver like Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Yeah, and I'm just looking up the Tampa Bay, cornerbacks. 6'1", 6 foot, 5'11", 6'1". How tall is Marquez Valdes-Scantling? He's like 6'4", 6'5". He can jump. Look, his hands are questionable this season, but you said it. Davante Adams is going to be back. So Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he's not going to have the number one cornerback on him. He has the speed. He has the height. They're going to be looking at Tanyan and Davante Adams. They're going to have their hands full. And like you said, he's not, you're not putting him wide receiver 30 here. It's wide receiver 52. I love that. And I think this could be one of those games where he has a great game and people go, well, where was this? Well, if you were paying attention, looking at matchups, not too surprising.
And you mentioned it earlier that Vita Vea is out for Tampa. That takes away a run stopper in the middle. That's a big deal against the Packers, who have been the number one run blocking offensive line. If Tampa has to, or even wants to, overload to stop the Packers' run, that's going to open up stuff over top. Obviously, to stop the Packers, you have to stop the run first. If you don't stop the run, they're just going to bleed you all day. So, yeah, Rodgers is going to have his shots with MVS this game. It just comes down to if Valdes-Scantling makes the plays, I think. And I'm not going to rank him assuming he drops a pass or something like that. So really, he could be a wide receiver 3 this week. I don't know if I want to go there because there's a lot of really good matchups, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Other wide receivers, I have N'Keal Harry 5 spots higher at wide receiver 53. His teammate, Damiere Byrd, wide receiver 54, that's 13 spots higher than the consensus. That just tells me people aren't paying attention. Damiere Byrd, we have an article on the site talking about Damiere Byrd. 9 targets in week 2, 10 targets in week 10. If Cam Newton's back, Cam Newton clearly loves Damiere Byrd. So he needs to be ranked higher. If people have him outside their top 60, I just don't think they're paying attention, I guess. And that's about it for higher. Lower, I don't know. I'm going to skip that one because I need to move him up. It's Devontae Parker. I need to move him up. Marvin Jones I have at wide receiver 57. That's probably low, but he's looked so bad this season. That's 4 spots lower than the consensus. I have AJ Green in wide receiver 58, and that's 8 spots lower than the consensus. I'm not even going to ask if I'm right or wrong because I know I'm right. Trevor, does AJ Green need to be owned at all in fantasy?
No. I mean, he's not the number one target. He's not what he's looked like. He's still injury prone, and Burrow is taking hit after hit after hit, and this team doesn't have an offensive line. There is literally nothing going right for AJ Green. The cameras may have indeed also clipped him saying, if you're not going to use me, trade me last week. Yeah. Whether that's what he said or not is irrelevant. He's obviously going to be mad, and if that is what he said, that's only going to deepen the divide.
Luke, any thoughts?
I mean, I've been saying it for the last 2 weeks that AJ Green does not need to be on your team. Obviously, the name value is there. This is not AJ Green from 9 years ago. This is AJ Green right now and not playing good football. Especially we're getting into like some big weeks for fantasy football here. Someone who's not playing good football does not need to be in your team right now.
And I mean, to play devil's advocate, I guess if he is frustrated, maybe they go out of their way to try to force the ball to him this week. I just don't think it matters. I don't think he's good enough to do anything with it. And if they start targeting him a lot, I think he gets hurt. So would it surprise me if he's a top 30 option this week? Okay, yes, if he's a top 40 option this week, it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't need to. I'm not going to die on the AJ Green hill. I'm fine with jumping off early. It's fine. Join us. It's okay. You could probably pick up T. Higgins and be perfectly fine. He's clearly better. Any other wide receivers you guys would like to talk about before we finish up with tight ends?
Yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Terry McLaurin. I'm getting a lot of trade requests for him, and I need to know what you guys think about him.
I would assume the quarterback switch is an upgrade. They cannot play Alex Smith. Alex Smith looked bad last week. Kyle Allen in there, I think, is going to be an upgrade. In the last 2 weeks, he's played Jalen Ramsey with the Rams, and then he played Baltimore. Now he gets Giants, Dallas, Giants, Detroit, Bengals, Dallas. I think he's going to be okay.
And I don't know if this is the same league that you're 5-0 in with 2 running backs out on bye.
No, God, I wish it was.
Okay, because I was just gonna say, if you need depth, play the stock market, get him a great week against the Giants, and sell him, even though he's got great matchups moving forward. Play the market, but I mean, heck, he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I've got a lot of faith in him, and I just had one more question too. I know you kind of hit on it before, talking about Demarcus Robinson and Mecole Hardman. Who do you think has a better week this week?
I need to look at specific stats, or not stats, but I guess kind of stats. I need to look at the Buffalo corners. I think Hardman probably has the better week. The only way Robinson has a better week is he catches one 50-yard touchdown. I don't think he's going to see the volume by any means to have an overall better game, even if he finishes with better stats technically.
I don't watch enough Kansas City, so my guess, not even going to guess.
Fair.
A guy I'd look at, wide receiver, real quick. Darius Slayton at 24. He's a tough guy to read.
Yeah.
He had a great game against Pittsburgh, great game this past week against Dallas, and kind of not much in the middle. Granted, he played Chicago, San Francisco before they had a ton of injuries, and the Rams, but he seems kind of like a boomer bust against a Washington defense. Who knows? He might go back into that bust category, but we'll see.
And he was one of my favorite DFS plays last week, so I'm happy that worked out. I think he has a good game against Washington if they can protect Daniel Jones. Obviously, that's a big if with Washington's defensive front. But Darius Slayton's kind of a deep threat for them. So if they get time, I think you can take advantage of this Washington secondary. But clearly Del Rio and Rivera know that as well. And everyone knows that the Giants' offensive line sucks. So it could be a really long day for Giants fans. I have Michael Gallup at 27. I guess we can talk about that. I think this is a good thing with Andy Dalton at quarterback with him. Andy Dalton doesn't have these already, forced relationships with wide receivers. Andy Dalton clearly looked Michael Gallup's way at the end of the game. I think people are making a little bit too much of a noise with that. But the biggest thing for me is that he clearly worked through his progression and found Gallup. I think he's going to be more likely to do that. I think Andy Dalton is further along mentally as a passer than Dak Prescott, not physically. But he's just a veteran that knows how to read offenses and work through his offense. So Gallup, me saying Gallup's better now isn't saying much, obviously. He was terrible except for 1 week. But I think, put in a small trade request for him before this Arizona game, I guess, if you can.
Yeah, my thing on Michael Gallup, too, is we talk about him a lot being the fourth fifth option on the Dallas offense. I think especially when they're passing and Andy Dalton's going through his read, I think Michael Gallup's a good enough receiver to get open by the time Andy Dalton goes to that third read. So maybe that's where some of that connection happens. But like you said, he was looking at Gallup a lot at the end of the game last week. And if the trend continues, Gallup might be in for a big week this week.
And the only way he doesn't get targets and catches is if that Dallas offensive line really struggles, because obviously Gallup is we've talked about how they have 3 vertical threats, but Gallup is only a vertical threat. So if he gets pressure, I think he will struggle. But Arizona, no Chandler Jones, I don't think they get pressure. The week after they play Washington, I think that's a really tough game for Dallas. But then Philadelphia and then Pittsburgh, I think that's, again, a really tough game for that offensive line. I think that's how you play the matchups with Gallup. Not necessarily the corners, but if you think Andy Dalton's going to see pressure all game long. Moving on to tight ends here. Boy, it's a wasteland this season. So many tight ends struggling. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Number 1 tight end on the week is the guy who took all of the blame for their loss on social media. I think he bounces back. Travis Kelce plays at Buffalo. George Kittle I have at number 2 versus the Rams. Mark Andrews, number 3, pretty much because I can count on him to score a touchdown at this point. I have him number 3 at Philadelphia. Number 4, Jonnu Smith versus the Texans. I think he's proven it. And then number 5, Evan Engram versus Washington. He's been the guy that everyone on their team is calling their best playmaker. I think he has to show it in a game where there's a lot of pressure. So, Luke, what do you think about that top 5 for tight ends this week?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I don't think there's been a player like Jonnu Smith who's been getting opportunity after opportunity with all these receivers going down for Tennessee, and that's just going to keep playing into his favor. You mentioned Evan Engram. Giants seem to really like Evan Engram. Like, they're running like jet sweeps with him as a tight end. Like, you don't see that much in the NFL, you know? He's obviously the best player on that offense. I don't see why they go away from getting him as many touches as he can.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, the only question with Ingram is health. We know he's a top 5 guy, just whether he can stay on the field. And Jonnu Smith has really been a revelation for me. I think we all knew he was good coming in, but fantasy-wise, he was just a little too unpredictable. Now he's had his chance, he's had his moment, and he's certainly shown up. So definitely good for him and his owners in fantasy.
I want to talk about number 7 this week, Dalton Schultz, a guy we've talked about a lot last week. Really, really disappointing performance. 1 catch, 6 yards, 3 targets. I am really, really chalking that performance up to, I believe the Giants are good against tight ends. I think they play them really well. I think they match up really well. And I would honestly be afraid to start almost any tight end against the Giants. This week is Logan Thomas. I don't think anyone's really going there anyways. But I also think Dalton Schultz bounces back against an Arizona team who is not as bad this year against tight ends as they have been previously. But they're not going to take away Dalton Schultz by any means, especially because he's not a top option. But Luke, we've all 3 of us have talked up Dalton Schultz for weeks, and now obviously last week was a bad performance. Are you worried about him at all, or do you think he does bounce back?
I honestly, I don't know. We talked about him maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we said pick him up. He's going to be your starting tight end for foreseeable future. I did that. You know, I got screwed off of it last week. But you know, you got to Schultz. I think this Dallas offense is still very good. You know, you just talked about Arizona been all right against tight ends, but all right still isn't, you know, great against tight ends. I think Dalton Schultz is another option for Andy Dalton to, you know, hit if he's still not fully integrated in the offense or whatever, just getting these first-time reps against real NFL defenses. Dalton Schultz is definitely the safety blanket there. So I think, yeah, I mean, especially with the shit show that tight ends are this year, I think Dalton Schultz is one of the safer options this week.
I love doing this podcast with you guys because you make me feel better when my fantasy team disappoints and just gets the worst luck. You know, I was worried about Dalton Schultz coming up this week. I was like, looking at the waiver wire, nobody there. And And he didn't look good last week, but I would agree, and I'm glad somebody agrees with me. Makes me feel more confident in my selection. He only got 3 targets, but obviously that's not par for the course. And like you said, Zach, Dalton likes going through progressions more, and Prescott didn't do that as much. So if he was able to get this kind of production with Prescott not going through progressions, who knows? Maybe he does just as well, if not maybe even a little bit better with Andy Dalton. Hard to say because he was doing so well, but I think he's a guy you still definitely have to have with all these injuries and the tight end history this year.
And if we're talking about using that offensive line matchup to gauge Michael Gallup's value on a week-to-week basis, if that pressure is going to get there and Andy Dalton can't look deep, he's going to look underneath, right? So we're talking about Ezekiel Elliott or Dalton Schultz. Or they're using CeeDee Lamb a little bit underneath more now, which is good. Mike McCarthy's progressing as a head coach. Good for him. But Dalton Schultz is still going to be there. He's going to be a good option underneath for Andy Dalton. We also know Dalton. This is a narrative people like to talk about, I guess. Quarterbacks coming in or whatever like to use their tight ends. Bad quarterbacks like to use their tight ends. If you think Andy Dalton's that, whatever. He does have a history of using tight ends in Cincinnati with Tyler Eifert. I don't think it's because he's a big body or anything like that, like a lot of people will say. I think it's because he is one of their top weapons. But no matter which side you stand on with that take, I think Dalton Schultz can fill that no matter what. Other tight ends here. Robert Tonyan, I have a tight end 15. Everyone loves to get excited about him. Mercedes Lewis sounds like he's back this week, so Tonyan should continue to be used, but he's not going to see the snaps. So I'm not overly excited, but are either of you starting, or would you be willing to start him as a low-end tight end 1? Or are you more on me and thinking he's a tight end
2? I would say probably tight end 2, especially with Davante Adams back. You just said Mercedes Lewis is back. The snaps and opportunities aren't going to be there like they were against Atlanta. I'm sure Rodgers will still look his way a handful of times this week. But he just doesn't have the upside to me this week that he did, the last couple of weeks when Davante Adams was out and Mercedes Lewis was out.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. You're on the field less. You're going to get less routes, less targets, and less points. He'll still be a tight end to have, especially with how bad the tight ends have been this year. But definitely don't expect him to get anything near 3 touchdowns a game ever again, unless somebody gets injured again.
Only other tight end I really want to bring up here before we look at the consensus is Jimmy Graham. We've talked about Jimmy Graham probably more than any other sports show has this year. He continues to be a good player. Scored another touchdown last week against Tampa Bay. 5 targets, 3 catches, 33 yards. This week he gets Carolina. Again, the Carolina defense I think has overperformed the last few weeks, and now they got banged up. So their inexperience gets banged up. It's going to reveal not only further inexperience, but also incompetent play. I think the Bears are going to be able to score points this week. And if you get Chicago down in the red zone, I would assume they use Jimmy Graham. Luke, are you in agreement with that? I know you are a Jimmy Graham fan.
Yeah, I'm in big agreement with it. Another thing I like is we always talk about how Carolina's run defense is not good. This seems like a game to me where Chicago tries to get the run game going and then run some play action off of it. Maybe hit Jimmy Graham a couple times over the middle of the field, and if they're in the red zone, isolate him out one-on-one against a shorter corner. Jimmy Graham's going to win that. Seems like every time. So I'm all aboard the Jimmy Graham train. I think he catches another touchdown this week. And I think Jimmy Graham is very touchdown dependent, but he does in fact score those touchdowns. So I don't think it's that risky of a play this week to start Jimmy Graham.
I just have to be off Jimmy Graham just because where was this the last 2 years in Green Bay? I have no problem with the guy, but I mean, I just feel like there has to be some regression, right? I mean, you don't go from terrible with Aaron Rodgers to great with this offense. So I just got to be off him just for this week. Hey, if he can do it again, bravo, I'll join the hype. But I don't know what's going on, to be honest. 2020, guys, 2020.
So looking at my rankings, I have Jimmy Graham at tight end 10. So Trevor, I can guess where you would probably move him, but let me take a guess. Would you start Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, and Gesicki over him, put him at tight end 14, or would you move him even further down?
I wouldn't put Hooper over him. He's had more targets lately. I don't see that happening. Hurst, maybe. Ryan loves tight ends, but Ryan has sucked, so probably not. Higbee, not really. Gesicki's touchdown dependent, maybe week to week. It just sucks. Jimmy Graham, what is he doing here? Like, we've been asking for this guy, and he's making one-handed catches, and I'm just like, surely this isn't him. Surely this is some other tight end. Hey, he can be tight end 10, but I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that he's doing it now, so that's what I'll say.
Fair enough. Looking at the consensus, there's only two that I'm really higher on. That's a surprise. Trey Burton, tight end 17. We talked about these Colts tight ends a little bit last week. We looked at the snaps. I said we looked at how each one played pretty much 33% of the snaps the week prior. And at least I said that I don't want anything to do with any of them because of that. Trey Burton had a decent game. It made noise just because how bad the tight end position is. He caught 5 of his 6 targets for 33 yards. Good enough for tight end 19 in half PPR. If I had to start any of the bunch, I think it's him. But I'm still off of all 3 of them. Luke, if you had to order them, how would you order, I guess, Jack Doyle, Mo Alley-Cox, and Trey Burton? And are you interested in playing any of them this week?
No, I'm going to say no. If I had to order them, probably Trey Burton, Jack Doyle, Mo Alley-Cox. I think now that it seems like all 3 of them are back, I feel like Mo Alley-Cox is just going to go back to his run blocking role. I mean, he's still a solid receiver, you know. I played him last week. I think I held on to him 1 week too long and got screwed on it last week. But I don't like these Indianapolis tight ends. You know, almost every show that I'm on, we talk about how Philip Rivers likes going to big body tight ends. Antonio Gates made a career out of it. That's not happening this year. I don't see it ever happening this year. Like, you put me in a spot I had to take one. The 6 receptions by Trey Burton is what sets him apart from the other 2. So if I had to pick one, Trey Burton, but I don't think I want any of them.
I mean, these tight ends are just too confusing for me, just because Mo Alley-Cox seems to know exactly where the end zone is and get there whenever you don't expect him to. Jack Doyle, I really have loved, but injuries and just performance, he hasn't really been able to put it together. So I see no reason to disagree. Burton, can't think of his name now, Doyle and Mo Alley-Cox in that order.
Out of 56 snaps last week, Jack Doyle led the way with 34. Trey Burton played 25. Mo Alley-Cox played 21. In terms of routes, they ran 37 pass plays. Jack Doyle ran 18 routes. Trey Burton ran 19 routes. Mo Alley-Cox ran 10 routes. So overall, fairly even. They are going to run 2 tight end sets just because the wide receiver situation is very iffy. I would guess, this is just me guessing, if it's a game where the Colts are trailing, Trey Burton's probably more involved. And then if it's a game where they can pound the rock and milk the clock, that's where Mo Alley-Cox may have a little bit more value. And then Jack Doyle can do both roles. So his role is probably safest. But depending on game script, I mean, the other 2 are going to be used more. So yeah, it's just not a situation I want to play with. I don't really care. And then the other tight end that I'm higher on than the consensus is Cameron Brate. Again, not ranking him great. Didn't mean to make that rhyme. I have him at tight end 19. That's 10 spots higher than the consensus. So in a year that tight ends suck, the tight end 15 from back-to-back weeks, not that week 4 is anything to write home about. Tight end 15, 1 catch, 3 yards, 1 touchdown. Great. But he got 6 targets last week, 5 receptions. Obviously, OJ Howard is out for the season, so it's just Gronkowski and Cameron Brate. Against the Packers this week, Trevor, do you think Cameron Brate gets involved? And I will say, or I will ask this, if Chris Godwin is back, does that make Brate completely irrelevant? Or does he have a consistent role no matter the health of the team?
I am so glad you brought him up. I was going to bring him up too. This is why we're the best fantasy sports live stream, because nobody else is talking about Cameron Brate or Jimmy Graham or any of these guys. If Godwin comes back, I think that does take away from him a decent amount. He's not a guy like Evans where no matter what, hey, he's basically their goal line running back. So I think when Godwin comes back, those targets are going to go down. I mean, if you got to be really desperate to play him, but I mean, it's desperate times here in fantasy football season right now. So if you have to play him, but once Godwin comes back, I think we're going to see his productivity go down for sure.
So you just alluded to being very desperate to play Cameron Brate. In the same league that I started Mo Alley-Cox in, I'm trying to pick up Cameron Brate right now. Is that a good decision, you think?
I do. I like him a lot more than Mo Alley-Cox. What about you, Trevor?
Yeah, same here.
Fair.
Again, that's not a big boost of confidence. I'm not talking up Cameron Brate, but I have him at tight end 19 right now. I think I'm going to move him up over Logan Thomas, so I'd make him 18. Again, nothing crazy. I think I would still rank Gronkowski slightly higher. I think if they get down into the red zone and they have to play some red zone offense, Gronkowski's probably one of the first options to look at, despite him not doing much this season. Cameron Brate's a vertical threat, though. I think Tom Brady can take shots with Brate against the Packers this week. It could be an issue. Packers don't have a lot of size at cornerback and in the secondary, aside from Kevin King. Kevin King doesn't really know where he is half the time. I don't think he's going to be a great option. I would assume Kevin King plays Mike Evans this week, just because if Alexander plays Evans, he's going to get bullied, despite him being unbelievable corner. He's just too small. So maybe this is a good matchup for Brate / Gronkowski. I just don't want to rank them too high, I guess. They just haven't impressed. Rob Gronkowski, I think we called it last week. Either it was this show or a different show. There's a prop on Gronkowski, and I said he'll probably hit it, but it might just be one play to do it. And that's pretty much what we saw when he ran in slow motion for 30 yards. And then got up hurt. So I think that's what Gronkowski is this year. I asked you guys this, though. What's a good comparison? Here's one. If you are a Rob Gronkowski owner, maybe you got smart to not start him now, but you moved him to your bench. Your starter is on bye, whoever that may be, and you see Jimmy Graham out there. Are you willing to drop Rob Gronkowski for Jimmy Graham? Luke, I think I know your answer, but you go first.
I would say in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too.
It depends. How good is my team? Because if my team is good, I'm not gonna take the hit to my pride, and I'm gonna keep Gronkowski. But if my team is desperate, I'm gonna have to swallow that pride and pick up a Jimmy Graham. I think that's how it's looking for me.
That's fair. That is fair. Surprisingly, I think Jimmy Graham looks like the more athletic option of the two this year. Again, that's not saying much, but I think that might be true. Any other tight ends you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yeah,
for me.
With Cameron Brate, I know we just talked about Chris Godwin coming back and maybe taking those opportunities for Cam Brate. Do you think Darren Fells might be a better option than Cam Brate going forward?
If Atkins is out for Houston, yes. If Atkins comes back this week, I'm not 100% sure on his injury situation. It would depend on that. I also don't think Darren Fells is a massive part of this offense anyways. He had 2 catches on 2 targets for 57 yards. He just broke one off. But if they get down in the red zone, we saw last year, I believe, how Watson's very okay with looking Fells' way. So against Titans this week, if Atkins is out, I think we have to start thinking about Fells as a legitimate option. Because even if he gets one catch for 3 yards and a touchdown, like Brake did that one week, that's probably tight end 1 numbers, to be completely honest. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. I don't watch a lot of Texans football, but I feel like every time I watch Texans football, Darren Fells is scoring a touchdown. That's the only reason to mind.
Yeah, best tight end in Houston since J.J. Watt, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you guys want to touch on for the week 6 fantasy slate as a whole?
I don't think so. I think you guys would like this. In one of my leagues, I was winning by 0.27 points, and the guy I was against had Buffalo defense, and they got him negative 3 points, and I won my week off of that.
That's rough. I mean, take it.
I am first in points for, and the top scoring team in my league is whoever plays me by 50 points. So 1-4, desperation time, boys, desperation time.
That sucks. I've been there though too. Only thing I'll close on is Tuesday Night Football was awesome, but it seems like a really long wait until Sunday with no Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd miss Thursday Night Football with how bad the games usually are, but boy, I miss it. I'd take another Jets game on Thursday in a heartbeat. But
they should have to until they win. You have to play Thursday night.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. Quite a bit of people. Make sure to follow us. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe. If you're not on YouTube, go over there, type in Flurry Sports, find us, subscribe. A lot of video content coming in the near future. And have a good night. Later.
Have a good one, guys.